Hello, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Broadbrook, Connecticut's Service Above Self. I'm Ann Osborne. Rotary International is a worldwide organization of over 1.2 million volunteers that provide humanitarian service, encourage high ethical standards in all vocations, and help build goodwill and peace to the world. This time on Service Above Self, we will be watching stories from the Rotarian video magazine. The Rotarian video magazine highlights just a few of the ways that Rotarians have touched the lives of people in our own communities as well as those around the world. In poverty-stricken areas of Brazil, the literacy rate is very low, with most children unable to write even their own name. Because of a lack of resources, including textbooks, traditional teaching methods are not always successful. Working with a grant from the Rotary Foundation, Rotarians brought a revolutionary teaching method to Brazil and taught 72,000 students to read and write. The project started by training teachers in a system called Concentrated Language Encounter. The basic premise is that together, by working in small groups, a class will write their own book, often based on a familiar story. They learn to read by reading what their classmates have written and improve their writing skills by contributing to the story. Above all, this system encourages cooperation between the students. This system has previously been introduced in Thailand with great success and was welcomed by Brazilians to help educate their children. Let's watch.
In the city of Contagem, there's a neighborhood. The neighborhood has a school.
A student reads a story she's written. Nothing special about that.
Near the school, there is a ravine. The ravine has 3 holes.
Except that until recently, this student and thousands like her would not have been able to read or write. A revolutionary learning system has given them the gift of literacy, and along with it, a bright new future.
In the holes live 3 owls, and here our story begins.
Belo Horizonte, Brazil's 3rd largest city. Its metropolitan area is home to more than 5 million people. Immediately adjacent is the city of Contagem. Its population is young and growing.
We are a corridor city. People migrate to Contagem looking for better working conditions. This means that we end up with a high number of illiterate people.
Even without the influx of migrants, Contagem would have many areas of poverty and need. In these neighborhoods, the children are especially at risk.
Most of the time, they live on the streets without adequate nourishment and without adequate hygiene.
In the 1990s, concerned about the widespread illiteracy, educators sought a new way to teach disadvantaged youth.
We really needed a methodology that could help us to accomplish our goals at a low cost. And we also needed a commitment from other people who were interested in our dream to eradicate illiteracy in our city.
Their search coincided with a call to action by Rotary International, a call that the Rotarians of southeastern Brazil embraced.
When in 1997-98, Glenn Kinross, president of Rotary International, established literacy as an area of emphasis for our organization, we initiated contact with Rotarians from many regions of the world.
Rotary came and made all our dreams a reality.
In the beginning, we had a matching grants pilot project. This project involved all 5 Contagem clubs and was presented to a group of teachers from Contagem's public school system.
The pilot project began training teachers in a system called Concentrated Language Encounter, CLE. Rotarians from Australia had introduced the system into Thailand, where it was a great success.
We sent Glaucia to Thailand, and there she studied the methodology with Professor Sawalak, brought it back to Brazil, and then shared what she had learned with the other teachers in Contagem.
In CLE, groups of students move from simple to complex language forms.
The students can experience all the activities hands-on, writing, reading, and producing quality text.
Instead of using textbooks supplied from outside, they create classroom materials using their own words.
We learned a lot by studying the owls. Then, we put a lot of our ideas into this book.
The traditional method is based on memorization, repetition, and a lot of note-taking. With CLE, the child is actually part of the process. The students build their own knowledge. They become part of the same book that will teach them how to read.
The main project of each CLE class is the creation of what's known as the Big Book, often adapted from a real story.
When it's time to select a book, the students are involved in the process. We pick books that are in sync with the needs of the students.
Our book was written by Huchi Hosha. In it, she tells the story of a kid that almost drowned in the garbage.
To many of the students, the subject was no laughing matter. Their families survived by scavenging usable trash.
Sometimes the children started fights because one was calling the other a garbage picker. So we started talking about the fact that there was nothing wrong with that. And in fact, it could become a source of income for the family.
Each group becomes responsible for constructing one or more pages of the Big Book. Then we mount the Big Book on the wall. It's always shown in the classroom, every day. And the teacher plans activities using the Big Book.
For example, Josie Nelly de Cruz's students wrote and performed a play with an environmental theme based on their own Big Book.
The children give wings to their imagination, and with the CLE methodology, they feel more included. They get more involved in the process of learning literacy skills.
And because of its communal approach, the concentrated language encounter method prevents students from being automatically advanced to the next grade.
The students work together in groups, and when one is not doing really well, the others will try helping him. And the progress in the classroom only occurs when everyone is doing well, so the system cannot fail.
The results speak for themselves.
The storytellers are the children who go to the school near the ravine, which has 3 holes where the 3 owls live.
11-year-old Chayana Ramos Barbosa is a student at the Sonia Braga School, an oasis of learning in a crime-ridden favela called Morro do Cabrito. In 2001, hundreds of teachers at schools like this one joined the CLE training project. The funding, almost $345,000, came from Rotarians in Brazil, Canada, and the United States, plus a 3H grant from the Rotary Foundation. The Rotarians created a network that connects teachers to the CLE training.
After we initiated the training courses for the teachers, we started searching for schools that were willing to participate in the project.
There are more than 200 Rotarians involved. Their involvement is huge. When they realize the efficiency of the methodology, they put their heart and soul into it. Sometimes the clubs themselves even supply materials.
Their dedication has paid great dividends.
When we moved here, I didn't know how to read or write.
In the hills above Sonia Braga lives one of Chayana's classmates, 10-year-old Angelo dos Santos.
Then, I started to get better and better. One day, I was able to write my name, and I was able to read my name.
He wrote me a little card. He drew a little heart and wrote, "Mom, I love you a lot. Because of you and my school, today I know how to write with my own hands by myself, and I still have it." Angelo, Chayana, and the Sonia Braga School are at the center of a movement that continues to spread across Brazil.
The objectives of the 3H project were to teach literacy skills to at least 55,000 students. To reach this objective, the goal we had in mind was to train 1,750 professionals.
The Rotary clubs met that goal and surpassed it.
We have already taught literacy skills to about 70,000 children. And we also had the opportunity to utilize our training center for teachers from all over the country.
We hope it continues this way, and that many other schools will start using the methodology in Brazil and in Latin America.
Another benefit of concentrated language encounter is that students become more integrated into their communities and into Brazilian society.
At the same time the student learns reading, he understands and interacts with other students and with the world. The methodology brings back values lost by our society.
The children from low-income families could be building a bridge from the life they have today to a better one. They can take a step forward. And they can do that through dialoguing, communication, claiming their rights, critiquing, and expressing their opinions.
Our children cannot grow, cannot live, and cannot learn by themselves. They must have a helping hand. And where did I find this hand? I found it at the Sonia Braga School.
The Rotarian joins Rotary because he wants to serve others. This work is something I decided to do voluntarily. The salary I receive spiritually is so huge that you cannot put a value on it.
I would like to tell them that I like them very much, and I send them a kiss and a hug. God bless them and bring them good health.
For Angelo, the ability to read and write has opened new horizons.
I've already written 2 poems.
One of his poems touches on his battle to overcome illiteracy.
I walked through the fire and did not get burned. I walked down the ice and did not freeze. I walked by you and fell in love.
It's a battle that Rotarians have helped him win.
While over recent years, there has been a decline in the number of cases of HIV/AIDS in many countries, the cases in South Africa have unfortunately been on the rise. Over 5.5 million South Africans, including 1 out of every 5 adults, are HIV positive. In our next story, we'll see how Rotarians in South Africa are bringing education, nutrition, and health care to orphans who have lost their parents to AIDS, with help from the nonprofit partner Soul of Africa.
The Republic of South Africa. Since 1994, the nation has begun to bind up the wounds of its troubled past. But in the same period, a new battle has been joined, the battle against HIV/AIDS.
The AIDS has been one of the enemy that has created a lot of a problem.
More than 5.5 million South Africans and almost 1 in every 5 adults are HIV positive. Many children have lost one or both parents. Some are destitute.
I have been to homes where children fall to 5 of them are sitting having warm water for supper.
As HIV/AIDS threatens their country's future, Rotarians have taken up the challenge.
If people don't step in to help with this crisis, our country, South Africa, is going to be severely crippled economically and socially.
Working with an innovative charity, they are educating, feeding, and nurturing the most defenseless victims of the AIDS pandemic, the children. Nowhere in South Africa has HIV/AIDS hit harder than in the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
I would say 78% of the people in this valley are infected.
The children suffer the most. Some are abandoned by their parents or shunned by their communities. Many are now orphans, with little or no extended family to support them.
They may not be HIV positive themselves, but their parents will have died and perhaps left them on their own, being looked after by a granny or an aunt.
When I've gone into homes and where parents are dying and the grandmother's trying to cope with that, the children are left emotionally and mentally battered.
Often young children, such as 15-year-old Mzwandile Magwaza, become the heads of their households.
His parents died through an AIDS-related disease. He's got 6 siblings, and then his one sister has had a baby and run away and left this child behind.
Ngihlalela ekhaya ngidlala ibhola maye khona ingane sihlale nayo la sidlalela ama-toys la.
The number of orphans, South Africa's predicted between 2 and 3 million by 2010. Even if it's only half of that, the country can't afford it.
Witnessing the ravages of the disease, the Rotarians of KwaZulu-Natal were determined to join the battle against HIV/AIDS.
We decided there were only 2 things that Rotarians could really do well and effectively, and that was to help the children affected by AIDS and help those that were dying of AIDS.
They began by securing Rotary Foundation matching grants for Lily of the Valley Children's Village, home to 80 youths whose families have been disrupted by AIDS. About half are HIV positive. However, early intervention can keep them healthy for decades.
It's antiretroviral treatment, which we've got most of our kids on that are infected. It gives them an additional 15 to 20 years.
The Rotarian contribution to Lily of the Valley has been invaluable.
It's been great that they've been able to help us provide homes for these children.
But the cost of group homes is high, and the Rotarians eventually concluded that providing this level of care to tens of thousands of endangered children simply wasn't feasible.
We decided that neither Rotary nor the country could afford to really do a good job of full care, including board and housing of children. There are just too many AIDS orphans.
Instead, the Rotarians now focus the bulk of their efforts on supporting child development care centers, also referred to as creches or preschools.
We can get to many more children and help them at a much lower unit cost. And the children stay in their culture.
The care centers serve any South African child from 1 to 5 and provide daycare, food, health services, and early education. With so many children being raised by aunts, grandmothers, and siblings, an expanded network of preschools would relieve the burden on orphans such as Mzwandile, who now depends largely on the support of a neighbor.
ekhaya bese ngisizo antimaduma lesuka kuyena lapha phezulu.
Rotarian Sithambiso Ndlovu supervises 62 preschools in KwaZulu-Natal, each with 50 to 100 students. He believes they help children prepare for attending elementary schools later on.
Since we started with the creches within the community, the failure rate has dropped in some of the school, and it increased the interest of the kids to attend the school, because when they're introduced in formal school, they don't have that big of a shock.
Another key reason for many South African children to attend the preschools is to receive anti-AIDS drugs provided by the government and private groups. However, many of the preschools are overcrowded and in poor repair.
They are in a devastating state because the community is doing this out of their own pockets.
Realizing the preschool's potential, the Rotary clubs set out to rehabilitate existing structures and build and furnish new ones.
Thank you so much.
But because the Rotary Foundation's matching grants don't fund construction projects, the Rotarians needed to find a partner that could. In 2005, they met one, Sarah Getty, who shared their concern about the AIDS crisis and its effects on South Africa.
How do you handle orphans? How do you make these children who've had these terrible starts in life, how do you actually make them successful, contented members of society?
Getty and her husband own a shoe company in Durban. Since 2003, they have trained unemployed women to hand-stitch a special line of shoes, which are sold in South Africa, England, and the United States. The profits from the shoe sales go to Soul of Africa, an organization the Gettys established to fight the AIDS pandemic.
Not only are they assisting themselves and their families, but they're also assisting this greater problem which they are exposed to daily.
Soul of Africa's first project was to support the Kulani Children's Center, a group home similar to Lily of the Valley Children's Village, the orphanage that the Rotarians had aided.
We started paying a few caregivers' salaries because they had no funding at all. They needed shower facilities, we helped with shower facilities.
Today, Kulani is home to about 20 children affected by AIDS, and some of the former residents make the shoes that help fund Soul of Africa. But although Sarah Getty is fiercely proud of Kulani, she's come to agree with the Rotarians.
Where you have to have a large amount of funds to run these children's homes, it's almost an archaic way of looking after children.
Instead, Soul of Africa has teamed with the Rotarians of KwaZulu-Natal to help increase and improve the network of preschools.
We started speaking about how could Rotary and Soul of Africa work together to disperse our funds effectively without having the huge administration burdens.
This whole operation generated funds for orphans, and they didn't really have the expertise to spend these funds properly.
So it just seemed a perfect match that we can actually supply the bricks and mortar that Rotary desperately need to get their projects going.
We can use the matching grant funding to do the equipping and training and food supply, and the Soul of Africa for running costs if that's needed and for the buildings.
In only a few years, nearly $500,000 has been raised.
And it's growing rapidly because shoes are now being marketed internationally and not just in South Africa and England.
In early 2006, the Rotary Foundation awarded its first 2 matching grants to projects officially co-sponsored by Soul of Africa. The grants will help support 12 child development care centers. One is Ketakushla Preschool, which will move from its temporary home in this church.
If the preschool could be given the care that it deserves, everybody will be interested to attend school because of the background, and which will then minimize the rate of unemployment because everybody will be educated.
Good.
Having launched their first projects together, the Rotarians look forward to a long collaboration with Soul of Africa.
To see that there is right on your doorstep, to see that there's such a want, such a need in the community, it's just really important to actually assist and to as many people as we can.
I hope that we'll very shortly move out of KwaZulu-Natal into the rest of South Africa and some of our neighbouring countries. We're already attempting to set up cooperation between the other districts in Southern Africa.
The challenge is enormous. In 2005, 70,000 South African babies were born HIV positive. But the Rotarians remain hopeful.
The future of Soul of Africa is unlimited in helping AIDS orphans.
And because South African children dream the same dreams as children everywhere, they deserve the same chance to see those dreams come true.
Ngikhulile mangithola imali ngizokwakha umuzi kahle la sihlale nefamily yami.
Thank you for watching the Rotarian Video Magazine on Service Above Self. For all of us here at Service Above Self, I'm Ann Osborne, reminding you to go out, find a worthy cause, and lend a helping hand in your community. We'll see you next time.
This is a tree that was never chopped down, to make a crutch that was never needed, by a child who never got polio, because medicine was never in short supply, thanks to people whose compassion wasn't either. Over the past 20 years, Rotary Club members have helped immunize over 2 billion children against polio. Thanks to them, the world will soon be polio-free. Rotary, humanity in motion.